Hi everyone, I'm Emily from Lehigh. We are live and we are recording now, but we're just gonna wait for everybody to come in. We have 4 minutes till the official start time. Will probably maybe start 1 or 2 minutes a little bit later, but welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Hi.
Hello.
Good morning and good evening, everyone.
Great.
Technical challenge. It's great to be here.
Sure. And I think we had I apologize that you ended up in the attendee place. It was a little confusing coming in. We have one more panelist that we are trying to see if they are. Also, yes. So yeah, oh, there you are. Okay, I think we have everybody. So welcome everybody. I think Shashir, are you going to open things up for us so that we can get started?
Thank you so much. So first of all, welcome to Lehigh University's Spark Spotlight on Entrepreneurship in India and Beyond. This series of 3 virtual presentations in the month of March and April focused on features leaders in entrepreneurship practice and education from around the world. Today's presentation focuses on the environment, global entrepreneurial ecosystems. Of note, this session is being recorded and will be available to the public. This series is brought to you via a collaboration with the Office of International Affairs, IACUCA Institute, Baker Institute, Lehigh at NASDAQ Center, and Technical Entrepreneurship. The moderator for today is Kira Mendes. She leads the IACUCA Institute in the Office of International Affairs at Lehigh, focused on global leadership experiences for students and young professionals. She's previously spent 30 years in strategy consulting and is a former partner of the Brisbane Group. I'd like to hand over to Kira, please.
Thank you, Shashir, and a big welcome to all of our panelists and guests from all over the world. It is wonderful to see all of you alumni, students, and friends of Lehigh in the audience. Today, we are joined by 4 guests from the entrepreneurial ecosystems of India, the UK, and the US. So welcome and thank you, Nicola Corzine, Yatin Thakur, Richard Thompson, and Anish Varma. We are looking forward to this discussion. I'm going to get the conversation going and then we can take questions from the audience. So feel free to put your questions in the chat, put them in at any time, and then we can have a lively exchange and we will have a dedicated time to talk through some questions as well. So let me turn first to Nicola Corzine, Executive Director at the NASDAQ Entrepreneurial Center, representing one of the most famous ecosystems of Silicon Valley. So Nicola, tell me about the unique role of the center in the entrepreneurial ecosystem and the impact that it has on entrepreneurs.
Thank you so much for inviting us to be here today. It's really an honor and a pleasure. The center is a 6-year-old independent nonprofit that was established under NASDAQ's foundation as a way in which we could really accelerate access and equity in the field of entrepreneurship. I think now more than ever, we've realized how critical that evaluation really is, not just for the benefit of local communities, but truly for domestic and international needs around solutions that are missing in this world. So over the last 5 years, we've really spent our time digging in and understanding that question as to what are the barriers that continue to persist from enabling really entrepreneurial mindset development to occur, no matter the age, no matter gender, no matter one's ethnographic data. And also, how do we connect communities together in a more intentional way than have been done before? I was originally part of Startup America now several years ago. And one of the unique aspects there was we saw how disconnected entrepreneurial ecosystems really were. And we had an intentional commitment to change that for the betterment of all entrepreneurial ecosystems, including most notably Silicon Valley. That's really what we've been doing now over the last 5 years. And it's really accelerated through our great partnership that we have, obviously, with Lehigh University and the Lehigh at NASDAQ Center, where we believe access to entrepreneurial mindset really does start with the student mindset. And again, connecting that international intentionality with how one experiences entrepreneurship, not just the art of thinking about it, but the art of doing it, the art of applying it, the messiness that is. It isn't about necessarily building companies. It is about applying an innovation mindset to everything in this world.
So how has the center and its partners adapted during this pandemic year, and what future opportunities and challenges do you see?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, this year has been beyond challenging for every single person out there, and entrepreneurs most definitely affected by that. However, as always, I think there can be moments of opportunity where we lean in and say, this is really inspiring to see what is coming out of this very difficult time. For us, for example, having more of an acumen for being fully virtual in this last year has allowed us to really connect with communities that we never would have done without being fully virtual. So for example, in a normalized year, we might be able to connect with 10,000 entrepreneurs. In this last year, we actually were inspired to work beside 25,000 entrepreneurs globally in developing and understanding their business challenges, in seeing how they were pivoting, in seeing what more was needed from them at a resource and an access perspective. And that has allowed us to now fuel and really build out with greater intentionality what comes next. So for us, I don't think we will ever go back to purely only being on-prem. We have a beautiful space in San Francisco. We're certainly looking forward to getting back into it. But now forevermore, we're going to be looking at how do we intentionally build out programming and access and equal opportunities to connect internationally with our entrepreneurs in every single program that we build.
Thank you so much, Nicola. So still in the US, but here in the smaller Lehigh Valley ecosystem, Rich Thompson is managing partner of Factory LLC in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, close to the Lehigh campus. In addition to capital, Factory provides facilities and mentorship for entrepreneurs. So Rich, what was the inspiration behind the Factory, and how does it help entrepreneurs? Rich, you're muted.
Great question. Can you hear me now? Great question. But before I answer that question, I want to tell Nicole is that NASDAQ's does not for those Silicon Valley people, is that we took one of our companies, Freshpet, FRPT, public on NASDAQ in 2014. Today it's over 7 billion. So food, beverage, and pet work really well on NASDAQ as well. So you don't have to be a high-tech guy. I'm what I call a low-tech guy. And us low-tech guys, we can work really hard, but we can still make a lot of value. The inspiration behind building Factory after I left Freshpet, and I've been an entrepreneur my whole life, so I've started multiple companies, is that an entrepreneur never has enough help that they need in order to grow fast and make fewer mistakes. And so after doing this for 40 years and building several interesting companies, I decided I would try, and every company has been unique in its own way. So I said, why couldn't you put all this under one roof so that you have everything that you need for an entrepreneur other than manufacturing? You have everything from sales, marketing, finance, supply chain, consumer insights, you got photography, you got everything that you need, e-commerce, everything under one roof. And then the people that we invest in have to move to this building and live in this building, so they get intense scrutiny and intense service in order to do that. So the motivation was, after being an entrepreneur for all these years and having to get on planes and fly all over the world and places and waste my time in hotels and canceled flights and so forth, what if you do it in one place? And the caveat to that is, when we invest in companies, they have to move here and live here. It's like getting a scholarship to Harvard or Stanford. You got to like kind of go there. So when we give you money, you have to come here. We're not asking you to live your rest of your life in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. We're saying you got to come here so you get this intense research around your business so that we can grow it up. And then once you get to a certain scale, we'll move you out, get your own office wherever it makes sense from a distribution, manufacturing, and sales standpoint. So we've done that multiple times with multiple companies. To give you one example, Stuffed Puffs. We just finished building a 165,000 square foot, investing over $100 million in the world's largest s'mores factory here in Bethlehem. So you can start small and we get you big. So it's intense scrutiny, making it happen. And we put it on the East Coast simply because we plan on building 3 of these across the US, one here, one in the Midwest, and one on the West Coast. But the first one was here because we felt that the Austin, Texas, Boulder, Colorado, Bend, Oregon, Portland, a lot of innovation, Silicon Valley. But over here on the East Coast, there wasn't that. So we picked the Lehigh Valley between New York, Philadelphia, and Boston as an area to help these entrepreneurs in the food, beverage, and pet space. So that was the inspiration.
So you kind of answered my second question, which was talking a little bit about what does place mean to an ecosystem. So let me take it a little bit further. Obviously, in your mind, place is important and that concentration of help. What does that mean in today's world where we're all on Zoom with everybody all over the world? Has that changed the role of place?
No, it doesn't, because there's nothing that will ever replace the human touch, and nothing will ever replace the idea of being together and exchanging ideas, and whether it's breakfast, lunch, or dinner, or walking past each other and saying, hey, I just had this social media experience and you should try it. You just can't get on these instantaneous, inspirational, like, here's the thought that I have, because you lose it, you write it down, you don't tell somebody. The Zoom meetings seem to be more formal. Only one person can talk at once instead of a group talking. So for me, everybody is back at factory. We've got 92% of everybody vaccinated. Everybody's back. We never did leave. We built 165,000 square foot, $100 million marshmallow s'mores factory, which is confectionery, it's candy. We built that whole thing on budget. We were 2 months late during the pandemic. So you can do whatever you want. You can't be afraid in life, and especially entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurs have to, like, we're going to figure it out. If I have to wear 12 masks and 4 hats and suit, I'm going to wear it, but I'm going to keep going and I'm not going to stop, right? So that's what we do around here, is make things happen.
Great. Thank you so much, Rich. So now we'll travel to the UK, where we meet another serial entrepreneur, Anish Varma, whose latest venture is a London-based fintech company with a mission to make credit equitable for everyone. So Anish, tell us about AIR and its vision.
Thanks, guys. Yeah, obviously always nice to talk to fellow Lehigh alumni and Lehigh students as well. Yeah, with AIR, I think, as we say in our mission statement, I think the desire to make consumer credit work for everyone is something that a lot of people have talked about, but we just found that there was so little change that was actually happening within consumer credit. And a lot of it was just maybe the lethargy of the system, with massive incumbents who are moving and innovating really, really slowly. And obviously with consumer impact credit, like, the impact is so wide, right? Most of us touch consumer finance in one way or the other. Some of us will get a mortgage. Most of us will have a car loan. In fact, most of us who are students at Lehigh might even have student financing, so credit cards. So it's such an important part of our life, yet it felt so disconnected from the reality of how modern people are and sort of the jobs we live and self-employment. So that's really the motivation for AIR, is to get in the system and sort of make change from the inside. We are obviously live in the UK where we started, and as my ambition to take the company out to multiple markets. So we're out in the US now, slowly scaling out over the last year, and one day I hope to take us out to Asia as well.
Wonderful. So AIR is a for-profit enterprise, but it has a strong social mission, and you're seeing this more and more, the intersection of these things. How have ecosystems evolved to support social and hybrid ventures?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question, right? And I think ultimately, I was fortunate that I had some expertise in building companies and some success prior to that I was able to very strongly and confidently put forward a type of a company that would ultimately still raise venture capital funding, still have a profitable business model, but yet be able to find a social cause and a mission that means that we're trying to balance both sides. And it does take the ecosystem also to mature around us. So we've been fortunate now that if you think about the ecosystem, let's see who are the participants, right? There's the media, there's obviously people who want to work in the companies, there's capital, i.e. investors, there's obviously the founders, there's the government, there's all the other parts of the ecosystem like the regulators. Everybody needs to understand what these new generation of companies are going to do, and it's not just ideally lip service. Hopefully they also follow through with like real decisions, and often these decisions are going to show that you're actually trying to balance both a for-profit outcome, but also hopefully hitting your social goals. So I am seeing a lot of ecosystems mature. I do think often, and maybe in the bias that I have, that I think the founders or the entrepreneurs have to really set the tone. And I think if they set the tone and set the culture of the company, other parts of the ecosystem will start respecting them and moving forward. So it's an important topic. Happy to talk about this at length offline as well.
Well, maybe there'll be some more questions about that. Thank you, Anish. So in India, Yatin Thakur leads the Global Entrepreneurial Network India, which is part of the Global Entrepreneurship Network, operating a platform of projects and programs for entrepreneurs in 180 plus countries. So very broad. Yatin, you are also a serial entrepreneur who has taken on an ecosystem building role. So what excites you most about Gen and its approach?
Thanks, Kira, for having me, and good to see Nicole and everyone else on the call. So I think for me, coming from this country of 1.3 billion people, what I saw as an opportunity was building more access and building more support for my fellow entrepreneurs. When I started working back in the days, about 18 years back, there was no ecosystem. I didn't know where to go, how to start, what to do, who to approach, how to get access to money, how to get access to new customers, how to recruit new people. I think over the years, we have seen entrepreneurship and startup, the word startup becoming mainstream, but still people lack support, access to validation, access to new markets, and even approaches to validate your business ideas. So with all the work I had done and with all the experience I've had in building and scaling ventures, eventually I was fortunate to be appointed as the managing director for Global Entrepreneurship Network here in India and lead its operations in Asia, because we saw one of the key things, one of the key missing element for an entrepreneur and even all the stakeholders involved in entrepreneurship is connect with their fellow mates around the world. So whether you talk about investments, whether you talk about academic institutions, whether you talk about accelerators, incubators, whether you talk about governments trying to draft policies, or entrepreneurs trying to build and scale their business ideas, they need connects with relevant set of people in different parts of the world. And that's what I think we did at Gen very nicely by bringing in all the stakeholders together. And to back it up, we have our own infrastructure, our own micro incubators, accelerators, supporting this particular initiative to strengthen the entire entrepreneurship ecosystem in this part of the world.
Wonderful, thank you. What are some of the unique characteristics of these ecosystems in India, and what do you see as the greatest opportunities on the horizon?
So that's a great question. I don't know how much are you following on the India story, especially in the pandemic. But if I can just talk about 2021, and if I can talk about April of 2021, we gave birth to 6 unicorns in 1 week, right? That's the amount of money which is being poured into this country. And that's primarily because the market is opening up. Consumers are digitally savvy now, and they are understanding. They are in a position to spend money. I think for the longest time, India has been a back-end service provider to rest of the world, be it for your textiles or be it for your best IT jobs, right? Like there was someone taking a call over here or fixing some of your IT solution. I think today the new India is all about its own identity, where it is coming forward and leading the world by spending its money, whatever wealth it is creating, it is putting back into the world. And that's what we are getting to see. I think that's the exciting opportunity for all investors, for all people who are excited to enter India, and for Indians who are trying to get out of their home turf into other parts of the world with their services, with their products. It might sound cliche, but if I can say it as like make in India or made in India.
So while we are getting questions into the chat, and I do encourage you to put some questions in the chat, I want to thank all of the panelists for this first round of individual questions. And maybe I will begin this section with a general question. Many of you have mentioned the pandemic effects in the last year. It's hard to imagine not asking that question. Anything surprising that has happened as a result of the pandemic, or things which you may see as an indicator of the future evolution of your ecosystem?
Well, e-commerce is going to move really fast. So e-com is something that's really moved up 5 years in advance just in 1 year. So e-com, direct to consumer, is really advanced. So I think that's one really interesting point. I think another one is that a lot of people have become afraid, and are afraid to leave their house, to leave their family, leave their safe space, whatever that might be. So I think that's really going to affect the employment status, because a lot of people are not going to go back to work, or at least go back to work in the way that they did work. And so there's going to be a big move in the economy from people that are afraid to be fully employed in companies that need, like manufacturing. You can't do that from home. You have to be there at manufacturing. We can't make marshmallows with chocolate in the middle, sitting in your living room. We have to have people there running the automated equipment. So I think there's going to be a big effect on employment and on social media, e-commerce, direct to consumer. That's my.
Any other views? Oh, sorry.
Yeah, no, all good. I think it's interesting. I'll take it from maybe a couple of really quick highlight reels from what we've seen this last year. One, I think on the positive side, the capital allocator environment, venture capitalists, limited partners have expanded exponentially their boundaries and their borders. So, there's never been more dollars that are looking actively for deals. And because we were in a digital world, the ways in which of limiting, I'm only going to invest in an X parameter, have shifted forevermore. So syndicate partners are happening internationally. Limited partners are investing in funds that they never would have been able to meet before, simply by the nature of this last year. And it's inspiring, and it's actually really radical in wonderful ways. I think you're getting a lot more mission-aligned partners coming together around a deal, or mission-aligned capital allocators forming together in a fund. The second thing that I would say is policymakers are more in tune than ever before with the critical aspect of what role entrepreneurs play, not just from a survivability, but from a thriving environment as we come out of this pandemic. So having seen in the United States, unfortunately, the challenges around PPP and the stimulus packages that were not necessarily flowing equitably, there's a lot more now considerations to how do we do things differently so we ensure that the money is flowing to the rising tide of entrepreneurs and not just limited with who gets access to those funds. And I think the third thing that I would call out as a hopeful moment of inspiration, but also one of challenge, is we have always stated that the journey of an entrepreneur is a lonely one. And it is not fraught without challenges, no matter how successful you get, as to how lonely it can feel in that environment. This year has turned that light on exponentially because we have all been isolated in ways that we have never been before. So the needs and the network around wellness and health and the mindset of access and support for our entrepreneurs is heightened at this stage. And we all within the ecosystem have a lot that we need to give in support to that lonely environment that an entrepreneur and a founder does feel.
Manish or Yatin, any?
Yeah, I mean, the thing I would add is, and I think if you look back to about a year ago, back in April last year, there was a lot of worry about what's going to happen to the consumer and how they're going to struggle. And I don't want to belittle the fact that many people have struggled a lot through this, and it's been tough on many, many people, but it's been surprising to see how well, in many cases, consumers have also taken prudent decisions to change their life or optimize. I mean, there is all these reports now about how so many people have, for example, paid down their debt or started putting money away into savings, or actually for the first time topped up pensions, and I think even optimized their lifestyle, or in some cases got fitter as well. So it's been good to see that there is a slightly different outcome from a consumer perspective as a whole than perhaps what we were worried about right at the start of the pandemic last year in May, March, and April. So that positive outcome has also meant that the consumer coming out of the pandemic is generally a little bit better in terms of their resilience, their financial status. Again, not everybody, but for the most part, that's really good to see. And that allows you to then sort of build on top of that. And I think it also creates a lot of opportunity for entrepreneurs to build on top of that.
Great. Yatin, I have a question for you. We have a question in the chat about the term global ecosystems, and because you are part of a network of these ecosystems, is there truly something as such a thing as a global ecosystem with what we've been talking about in terms of place and concentration and serendipity and the personal aspects of it?
Well, what I can say out of my personal experiences, these networks do play a big role, because as Nicola mentioned, that an entrepreneur's journey is very lonely. Similarly, anyone who's involved in this process is lonely. An investor doesn't know where to put in the money. A policymaker doesn't know from where to get guidance in writing the right policy, right? And a fellow entrepreneur doesn't know how to solve a problem. So, so what we feel, I think, with our network, with our conferences, with the interactions and the celebrations we have done, we have just brought people closer to each other, and that has really helped in bridging the gap. So, for an example, I remember I was at a bar. I was traveling to South Africa for Global Entrepreneurship Congress in 2017. And over there, we had this discussion about launching, like trying to figure out something, trying to strengthen the community within Asia. And a bunch of Asian countries, the country leads decided to step out, go for drinks together, and figure out how do we work with each other, considering we have closer borders and the travel time is lesser. And there's a market for, there was a good market for each of us, because otherwise for every business idea, for every large product or a consumer product, if you reach to the US, you are done. right? We said, okay, Asian market is developing. How can we work on it? So I remember this was a very random conversation which happened between a bunch of us. But by the time this was March or April of 2017, September 2017, we were actually invited by the Prime Minister of Thailand to launch something called as Gen Asia. And he said, hey, I heard that at one of the conferences, you were planning to launch an Asia-focused forum. And one of my minister happened to be there at the bar with you guys. And it was a random conversation. So this guy hosted us and we did a massive launch to launch Gen Asia. And next thing was, okay, we have launched Gen Asia, but what exactly are we doing over there? So then we had a vision that so time passed. Again, we reconvened in Turkey in April of 2018. And at that point of time, we said, hey, it'll be wonderful if an entrepreneur from India can actually go and easily access any other South Asian market. They don't need to go through any long visa queues. They are not questioned before applying for visa, and they get a red carpet in whichever country they are trying to launch their businesses. So we were like, okay, how does it look like? So again, it was like just a discussion. And by the time we reached September 2018, we launched something called as G-Asia Pass, which was a universal pass, which allowed access to entrepreneurs from within Asia and from within the member nations to access newer markets amongst those member nations without any red tapeism or bureaucracy or documentation. And entrepreneurs had access to priority visa. Entrepreneurs had access to getting their entities or businesses opened in newer countries and get access to local funding from a new region in a matter of a few days. So, so I feel that's where global communities help each other. When you have the right people in the right room, you try, even if you brainstorm on something, you never know it becomes a reality, and we've seen that happening. You're on mute, I guess.
Yes, I know. I turned it off because my dog was barking downstairs, which is a very, Zoom thing to have happening here. Nicola, I know your time is short this morning, but we have a question in the chat specifically for you about mentorship and the center's Mentor Makers movement. And can you talk a little bit about that and how the community can get involved?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to. Well, as I think everyone here has already articulated, the role of mentorship is so critical in access and support for entrepreneurs. We wouldn't be here, a 3-time founder, would not be where I was were it not for people sort of leaning in to say, how can I help? What more do you need? Let me share my experiences. I'd love to see what I can do in support of you. That mindset, that pay it forward mentality is really the currency of entrepreneurship. And so what might it look like for our entrepreneurs around the globe to be able to pull down this personal advisory board when they needed help in the moment that they were struggling something big? So in, again, this last year of COVID, there has been heightened challenges around building out that kind of network. We can't go to events in the ways that we once could and bump into people that could be that support system for us. And so what we tried to do and what we committed to doing was really activating a new network of access and supportive mentorship around the world for our entrepreneurs who were coming out of COVID with a resiliency mindset. This is an aim to unlock 1 million mentor hours for more than 50,000 businesses in the next 12 months. We are a handful of months in. It takes a village. So everyone here is representing both sides of that marketplace. Either entrepreneurs who could benefit, who could really gain access to expertise right now. If so, we'd love to support them. It's a next to no time investment, a couple of minutes to sign up. We get you matched, and the power is actually in the hands of the entrepreneurs. So you can go through, you can curate all of the experts that we have on the platform, hundreds growing to thousands at this stage, and identify who would you like to connect with and book a session directly with them. Now, obviously mentorship is like walking into an ice cream shop. There's 50 flavors depending on who you're talking to. This is about responsive mentorship. So it's really around unlocking 30 minutes to an hour of expertise from somebody operationally who has already been there and helped build out this kind of level of knowledge for you to gain support with. It's all free, again, all based on this pay it forward mentality and mindset. Similarly, if you have expertise, you're sitting on the sidelines going, I don't know, is my skills needed? Trust me, they are now more than ever. Every expertise out there is being tapped into at scale and at need. So we'd really love you to be able to go in, sign up. It's you can go through our website. That's going to be the fastest way, thecenter.nasdaq.org. Click over to Mentor Makers, sign up, get the help that you need, or nominate an entrepreneur to get the help that they need. And certainly if you have expertise that you would like to give to entrepreneurs wherever they may be based, we'd love to have you in on the movement now. Kira, thank you so much for letting me be here today. It's really been an absolute pleasure. Panelists, thanks for inspiring and informing. It's been an honor to be here for sure.
Thank you, Nicola, and thank you for joining us, even though your time was short with us today. So for the rest of you, actually, there's another question for Nicola, but I think it may also be broadened for a question for all of you. As we emerge from COVID, what are the impacts that will have on your local ecosystems? Will they have changed as a result, and what do you see as the new that is emerging from this challenge in your local ecosystems?
I can jump in. Maybe Richard might have an interesting view as well.
Yeah.
I hope the connection's not unstable. It's just giving me an error message, but if I do cut out, let me know. So
No.
I think there's two or three things which are quite fascinating, right? So one is, if you think about talent, I believe it was Richard, maybe you might have even said early on, like where people are moving around, and in many cases they have optimized for lifestyle or the schooling of their kids, or maybe being closer to nature, and maybe moved out of urban centers. And I mean, we've definitely seen that in the UK. I know it's happening in the US. I mean, look at the mortgage craziness. And that actually really interestingly changes the availability of talent, both positive and negative. So we've been able to hire people in places where ordinarily we wouldn't have been able to reach out or build an office. So that's great. And in some cases, like the work we do where it's largely software, not so much hardware, as Richard was talking about, people can connect over a computer and you can be working from anywhere in the world, right? So that's great. I think the flip also is interesting because the distribution of capital, which is the other really important element in entrepreneurism, is probably also becoming a lot more spread out. So I have heard of a number of American VC funds who are much more comfortable, getting on Zoom calls, meeting interesting companies in a variety of different parts of the world, where ordinarily there might have been a little bit of a hesitance that, and there was this age-old adage that, Silicon Valley investors want to invest in places which are driving distance from their office, or some sort of mindset like that. So that's been really good to see that that's kind of changing, and you're seeing, venture capital firms, whether they're based in the Valley, New York, London, anywhere else in the world, are investing way, way more globally. So you'll start seeing companies and talent therefore being able to pop up and create, probably winners out of markets or cities perhaps that would have never seen that level of success come out. And I think that's fantastic for the ecosystem.
Yeah, I would certainly agree with that from that standpoint. But I think the most relevant thing around here, at least on the East Coast part of the United States, is that you can go to any store and get toilet paper. So, but seriously, is that I think that the supply chain will start changing. People were doing just JIT in a lot of things around, and you can't get chips for automobiles now. I think manufacturing is going to move around, so people will have a better handle on supply chains, whether it's east or west or north or south. I think people are going to rethink supply chain because everybody got caught a little bit short here. And I think that it was a critical mistake. Depends on what kind of business you were in, of course. But in the food business, for sure, the supply chain held up really well compared to some of the other supply chains around the world. because most food is made here in America, if you will, beef, chicken, and things of that nature. So it didn't have to be imported, but you saw what happened to supply chains when there's no people working, there's no people at a port on a crane to unload a container ship when the container ship just sits there, right? So I think a lot of things in supply chain will change for sure. I think people, jobs will change. I think not only has e-commerce changed, but the Zoom economy has changed, so that people will be doing a lot more business around the world on Zoom. We'll be able to connect and talk to people in ways that we've never talked to people before. It's become normalized to have your dog bark in the background and your kids on your lap. And I think it's a lot, because before it's like, oh no, like shut the door, don't talk to me, right? Like right now, like if I have to sign a document, I'll sign a document, still talk to you, right? So I think everybody's gotten used to how this can work, and it's okay. And maybe I'm standing here in my tennis shorts ready to go play tennis, and maybe I'm not, but really who cares, right? So a lot of things have changed around the world, and we look forward to being flexible to make those changes with the world.
So Anish, I want to jump back to you because a question came out in the chat here about Brexit and how that is changing the ecosystem here in London.
Yeah,
so maybe you can
exactly.
say a couple words on that.
I think we lost him in between.
I think we might have lost. Well, we'll come back to that. We do have some other questions. So here's a question for any of the panelists. What is missing from entrepreneurial ecosystems? What is not there that should be there? And I know a couple of people mentioned earlier about policymakers or what stakeholders are not around the table. So what's missing that should be there?
I would say the motivators, the people who can keep the energy flowing, keep the energy high and positive for fellow entrepreneurs, because a lot of times we tend to get so invested into our business ideas, we forget about our own happiness, our own mental health, or the health of people around us. So someone has to be there to kind of keep a check on all these things. And if you are in a low mode, if you are stuck somewhere, they should be able to help you sail through the situation. And we got to see that during pandemic. Job roles were changing, the way businesses were done were being changed and were being questioned. We launched an incubator program just to support the struggling founders to come to us, talk to us, and tell us where were they stuck, so that we can get them out of a situation.
Yeah, I would agree. I would agree with that completely. Also, I would agree that more education about what entrepreneurs can do for your community and for the world, right? For the ecosystem. Entrepreneurs are doing everything from taking bottles out of the ocean to finding new ways to build buildings, right? So people really probably really don't understand what entrepreneurs are. I think people think, oh, entrepreneurs, Bill Gates or Michael Dell or Richard Branson. But there's a lot of entrepreneurs that do a lot of great stuff for communities and for their countries and for employment. And I don't think the general population really understands what entrepreneurs can do, and then find ways to support those opportunities.
Great. Anish, welcome back. We had a question for you in the chat, and that is how Brexit is changing the entrepreneurial ecosystem in London. So maybe you could say a little about that.
Yeah, Brexit. Well, look, for us, it's also been a while now, right? So if you kind of roll back, it was June 2016 when the vote happened. So, we've had a fair few number of years to factor that in. And talking to most of my fellow founders in the ecosystem, and even for AIR, I think one theme has been that when we think about expanding out of the UK, and UK is a relatively small market. If you think about it, 60 million or so customers. I mean, I know Yatin's probably looking at that and saying that 60 million is a rounding error in population, but that's still a fairly small market. So for most companies in the UK, we need to think about scaling outward, right? So that used to be either you go to the continent, or now what's interesting is many people are saying, hey, rather than go to the continent, the EU rather, why don't we just go to the US? Or in some cases, why don't even we just look east and go to Asia or go to India? So it is changing how that dimension of expansion is happening, number one. We are unfortunately going to take a hit when it comes to talent, which is unfortunate. We used to rely a lot on great talent coming from Europe, from an engineering or data science perspective. But maybe the flip of that is the kind of remote working mindset allows you to tap into talent globally. So maybe that helps counter it. And then I think the final point is always going to be around policy and regulation, right? So we are still, unfortunately, in a very ambiguous place when it comes to really understanding what is a long-term policy or regulatory frameworks that we will become aligned to, whether, we used to be closer to Brussels, obviously, when we were part of the EU. Are we going to become quite independent? Are we going to become closer to Washington? Are we going to end up being closer to some other Asian territories? Are we going to become closer to the Commonwealth? So there is some ambiguity, unfortunately, and that, in certain types of sectors and in certain areas, that really does add a lot of chaos for the entrepreneurs. But in many ways, I think, Brexit's that thing that's just, it's happened a while back. People have kind of digested it. We've kind of moved on to the next thing, and we're hoping that it's yesterday's news. I mean, there are still going to be challenges from it, but I'm hoping that it's done and dusted now from our perspective.
Thank you. Thank you, Anish. I'm going to switch gears a little bit. Somebody mentioned earlier about access and participation in entrepreneurship, and I want to explore that a little bit more, especially because this year issues of structural inequality, opportunity became even more visible through the crisis and the pandemic. What role can ecosystem stakeholders play in order to increase participation in entrepreneurship and have more entrepreneurial success in populations that have not had as much access in the past? And anybody can get that started.
Well, I'll start. Is that obviously in America, our culture's been so you could fail a lot and still go. And some other cultures, if you fail, it's like, maybe you go hide your face somewhere. So different cultures have different ways of looking at it. But I think the first key for me is that you have to look at a mirror and look at yourself, because you can't look at entrepreneurism like, oh, I want to be a software engineer, or I want to be a doctor or a lawyer, where you can go get the education and you're smart and you can go do that. Entrepreneurism is completely different. Is that there's different types of entrepreneurs for sure. I was born an entrepreneur because I've never had a job. I've been doing this my whole life and I don't know anything else. And my tolerance for risk is completely different than tolerance for anybody that would be a normal person. And so there's entrepreneurs that go to college and say, okay, I want to be an entrepreneur in college, but is it like smart? Yes, but is it in here? Is it like, can I really do this? You've got the corporate entrepreneurs that, you're in a corporation and you learn stuff in a corporation and you go, oh, I can do that better. And you know some knowledge and you leave a corporation. You've got retired entrepreneurs that at the end of your career, I've always been thinking about this and I'm going to do it. You've got the mom entrepreneur, meaning that it's something that it's bothering me and I need to do it for my family. So there's different types of entrepreneurs, and you got to understand who you are before you can really start. And I think a lot of people make that mistake, is that they go, oh, entrepreneur, that sounds fun. I can be my own boss and I can go out and raise some money and I can talk to some people and I'll just build this billion-dollar business. Well, it doesn't really work that way. And I think that a lot of people really have to understand more about what an entrepreneur really is before they can really start doing it. That's my 2 cents.
Yeah.
Anybody agree?
I think what I see the biggest change is today, it doesn't matter what background you are coming from, and thankfully in front of a camera screen you can be anybody, and that has I think that's a great power for people, especially from the smaller or lower communities, who were neglected, who either didn't get a chance or were shy to come and present themselves in front of people. Today, no one is judging you, so it's okay. So I think somewhere the status quo has been removed, and it's all, so we are reaching equality thanks to these digital tools, and you would at least have an ear for your business idea or for any support which you might be looking for, or for accessing money. So things are becoming easier. Yes, people have to be empowered more, because people don't know what are the channels or what are the networks. But if someone understands that, it's fairly easy to access it and grow.
Yeah, and I think both Richard and Yatin said sort of really wonderful things around this. I mean, if I look back at my last 15 years, 15 years ago when I said I'm going to go launch a company, people thought that's because I couldn't get a job. And that's kind of my polite way of saying that I'm creating employment for myself, or I'm between things. And you look, each ecosystem has its own different acceptance of that. I think had I said that 15 years ago in the Valley, I think that would have been very normal. London wasn't quite there. I know some parts of the world still aren't. And it's been great to see that that's moved along so much that people totally understand the idea of being a founder or an entrepreneur. And I know Nicola's not on the panel anymore, but some of the topics she talked about around support and mental well-being of the founders, or just the chaos that you go through in trying to go from effectively nothing, right? The likelihood of failing is more than the likelihood of succeeding. So to succeed is against all odds. And therefore the founders and the initial team really have to get through a lot to get there. And I think that support, which the entire ecosystem is responsible for, right? Whether it's the investors, the media, the government, all of them have to understand what it takes to support the journey. And it's good to see everybody's talking about it. I think the fact that it's an accepted profession, I think is fun to begin with, because that means, we can all get past the idea that this isn't, some kind of Ronin on the street. This is a person who should be given some respect.
Exactly. I'll go for that.
I'd like to close with one final comment. And for that, as we move forward from this year of disruption and change and hopefully opportunity to come, can you share one piece of advice that you would have for aspiring entrepreneurs?
Yeah, for sure. First of all, I want to say I didn't go to Lehigh, but I feel like I'm a cousin, because I'm like across the street from Lehigh, like 2-3 blocks from Lehigh. So I may not be a graduate from Lehigh, but I feel like I'm a cousin. Okay, so let's leave it at that point. But I think that the basis is that if you have a really good idea, if you have a really good thought, talk to your friends and family about it. So many people have an idea and they like, oh, this is secret. This is secret. I'm not going to talk to anybody about it. Let me tell you, every idea other than maybe some software code has been thought about. Every idea has been thought about. It's about execution. It's about somebody's got a plan to go make it happen and execute it. That's the difference, right? So if you have a good idea, don't be afraid to talk about it. Go talk to your family, your friends, your mentors, whatnot, and get the feedback, right? Is there a barrier entry around it? Can you make a margin on it? Is it scalable? Is it really a fad, or is it something that's going to be around? It's a trend. So get some feedback, understand it. And, I have 20 ideas a day and I throw 19 of them away, right? So then I keep one maybe on a piece of paper someplace, and, for some day that I need to look for something else. So don't be afraid to talk to people about your idea, because it's all about execution.
Thanks.
Yeah, and I would really take that further from Rich. I mean, it's fantastic what he said. The idea is like 1% and the execution is like 99% of the journey. And with execution, you have to be relentless. You have to think about execution. And along the way, you're going to get bumps and rejections and, tough days. And I always say, as a founder, you're mostly dealing with negative news, because the positive news, others get to celebrate. You're always worried about the next bad news coming down the road. So don't get disheartened. Have a good group of people around you who you can support with. And again, that's where WhatsApp and all these things are great. You can always have a group of people you can go rant with, but stay positive, stay on it, read a lot, also build good habits internally, fitness, yoga, meditation, whatever it is, but just keep ready to be executing all the time. That's the only thing that gets you to I guess the goal here.
And I'll add on to that just a second, is that it's about execution. I agree 99%. When this young entrepreneur came to us about marshmallows filled with chocolate, right? That idea has been around for 100 years. 100 years, because think about it. Every Hershey and Mondelez and Ferraro and Mars, they've thought about how do you fill a marshmallow with chocolate on a commercialized basis. They all thought about it, but nobody could execute it. Nobody could execute it until we developed, and we spent about $25 million on a research center just to go do that project. And we got it done, and now this will be $1 billion business, right, or more. So, but nobody executed on it, but everybody thought about it for 100 years, and everybody talked about it, but nobody executed.
Yatin, what is your advice for entrepreneurs?
So taking it forward from both Richard and Anish, what I would say, one, as Bill Gates says, idea has a shelf life of a banana. So don't keep thinking about it. If you have thought about something and if you have finally reached that stage to start up, that's 1% of the task. There is a lot to do. And my specific suggestion to entrepreneurs would be that don't spend too much time in planning, because you just don't know what's going to come your way. As Anish said, every day is a surprise. There would be problems which you can never think of, and you will have to solve them. So there's no point spending too much time in planning it. Start executing. As you execute, as you get more familiar with your business, you will learn the tricks or hacks, and you will overcome those issues.
Well, thanks to all of you. We've covered a lot of ground, both in content and geography. So on behalf of the alumni, students, friends of Lehigh, everybody in the audience, we are grateful you were able to join us today and share your experiences and your perspectives. And at this point, I will pass it back over to Shashir.
Thank you, Kira, and thank you to Nicola, Yatin, Rich, Anish, and our attendees. Looking ahead, the last in our 3-part series is coming up on April 28th, with a spotlight on the talent developing the next generation of global entrepreneurs. To learn more and register for the next session, please go to go.lehigh.edu/spark. We look forward to seeing you soon, and thank you once more.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye.